Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. Last night on the WWE Network, I watched Hell in the Cell 2011. Honestly, I was looking forward to watching this show for the one reason that, if you remember back to my Night of Champions 2011 review, I was scratching my head so bad about not remembering anything that happened with the basically Triple H CM Punk storyline. Just trying to remember how they really blew this. If you remember how big CM Punk was at Money in the Bank and SummerSlam 2011, it seemed by that time, he had already fizzled out to just being just another guy that was on the roster. So when I noticed I didn't have a Hell in the Cell 2011 review on my channel, I fired up the WWE Network and went over and really was sort of fired up to start out this show. This show started out in a pretty good way. Sheamus versus Christian. I was surprised to find out that this wasn't any sort of a championship match. This was just sort of two guys going out there to find out who the better man was. Sheamus and Christian really had an answer for everything that each other was doing. It was a really good, very long match, with Sheamus finally getting the win over Christian. From there, we went into the Battle of the Sin Caras. This was something that I honestly was really into, that nobody else really was. Even during this match, it seemed like this was an empty arena match. There was no noise throughout the whole arena. Basically, if somebody dropped a pin in the last row, that camera was going to pick up with its microphone that pin dropping. Cha-ching! All the way into the back. You had Sin Cara wrestling against they called him Sin Cara Black or Sin Cara Negro, something like that. They both wore the same attire, but he had black to it. I think that the Sin Cara Negro ended up being Hunico, which ended up turning out to be Sin Cara once Mystico left WWE or was released one way or the other. So the guy who was portraying the bad Sin Cara now is the good Sin Cara. But basically, it was it wasn't really a lucha style of match, but it was more lucha than WWE normally is, and it was a good way to show off the skills of Sin Cara Mystico at the time. I felt like WWE they knew what was going on at the time. Nobody really cared about this feud because they had this match on the pay-per-view Sunday, and then Tuesday at the SmackDown tapings as they had a mask versus mask match, where Sin Cara Negro lost his match and he becomes Hunico from there on out, and then Sin Cara just really never had a feud that anybody cared about from then on out. Of course, he would get injured and miss, mass amounts of time, so they never really had time to put him into a feud. And from here, the most time he ever got over is when they paired him up with Rey Mysterio as a tag team, I believe in 2012, and I don't even think they ever won the tag team championships. I think they just were sort of there. They might have won the tag team tournament to become the number one contenders, but I don't think they were able to cash in and win the straps. Then from there, going into a tag team championship match, we saw Air Boom, which was Evan Bourne and Kofi Kingston, which seemed to be a pretty good tag team for the second pay-per-view month in a row. We watched 2011. They seem to be a team that I don't think I was going bananas over them at the time, but Evan Bourne was a wrestler that I liked. Kofi Kingston is just sort of there, but you put them together and you sort of got something. They wrestle against Jack Swagger and Dolph Ziggler, of course, with Vicky Guerrero yelling and screaming on the outside. Air Boom was able to pick up the win in a pretty good match. Ziggler and Swagger, of course, working together as a team, but also competing against each other for the love and affection of Vicky Guerrero at the same time. From there, we went to a waste of space Hell in the Cell match. Mark Henry going up against Randy Orton. Of course, this was the championship match because the month before, at Night of Champions, is when Mark Henry beat Randy Orton to become the champion after his 15-year career. He was able to call himself a world champion for the first time. Of course, he was the ECW champion before this, but then, they don't really look at that as a world championship. It just sort of was a title on a show. Back in the day, it was almost like an independent title. They sort of treated it as. But in this match, Randy Orton's going for a punt. Mark Henry's able to catch him and put him in the World's Strongest Slam. And Mark walks out of here as the champion. I think from here he goes on and starts battling the Big Show for the championship after this feud. From there, we go to Cody Rhodes coming out and cutting a promo. Cody Rhodes had two guys walking behind him, and I honestly had forgotten all about the baggers. The guys that would walk behind him and they would put bags over the people in the front rows faces because they couldn't, last up to dashing Cody Rhodes out there in the ring. And I honestly thought one of them was Joey Mercury, and I was like, when the hell did Cody Rhodes have his own sort of faction going along with what was going down? Cody comes out, and he is the Intercontinental Champion, and he puts the then Intercontinental Champion, the sort of longer world sort of title. It almost used to look like the Attitude Era Championship that Triple H is probably most famous for having, but stretched out longer, so the globe is long. He takes that and he puts it in a bag and then reaches out and pulls out the white Intercontinental Championship strap. This is probably the last time the Intercontinental Championship was really relevant in WWE, was this reign of Cody Rhodes, where he really was defending it. From here, he would hold it all the way into WrestleMania 28, where he would lose it to the Big Show, and then from then on out, even though Cody Rhodes was able to regain it from the Big Show, I think at Extreme Rules or maybe at another pay-per-view, the reign never really got going again, and the strap just turned into sort of like just something like a ghost of what it once was in the early 90s and 80s. Cody Rhodes lifts up the championship, says that he's going to be a fighting champion, that he's to defend it anytime and anywhere. And even though he's in a suit, John Morrison comes out and says that he wants a match right now. So Cody has to wrestle the match in his suit, which he's still able to win. Sorry, John. Always really liked you. Still really looking for you to pop up on any major scene, even if it is TNA somewhere. I always was a real big fan of John Morrison. From there we go to Beth Phoenix wrestling against Kelly Kelly for the Divas Championship. Of course, a few months before, it was the month before SummerSlam, I think that would be Money in the Bank, is when Kelly Kelly was able to do the surprise victory over Beth Phoenix. We went to that Night of Champions show where Beth Phoenix lost again to Kelly Kelly, and she broke down and started crying. This time she came out with Natalya, and Kelly Kelly always had Eve Torres in her corner. This match was just a normal singles match, but it almost turned into an I Quit match, basically, with Natalya beating up Eve and throwing her into the ring steps and into the the barricade on the outside, and then just Beth Phoenix just destroying Beth Phoenix destroying Kelly Kelly, and Natalya holding a microphone, trying to get Kelly Kelly to say she quit. Finally, Beth was able to regain her championship in a pretty good Divas match right here. And then we go to the Triple Threat Hell in the Cell match, which brings Alberto Del Rio going up against the champion John Cena and the most popular man in the world, CM Punk. They have a long match, very long, before finally they get down to the meat and potatoes of the story they're trying to tell, or basically they do one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a match. It just doesn't make up for how long the match was, where they don't even really use the cell. You see some guys get thrown into it, but it's not what Hell in the Cell was. Hell in the Cell is, it's got a good story if they use it for the right way for Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins, where there is no way for her. We might as well call him a her, because the way he runs away in the skirt. But basically, if they use it like that, it's right. But the Hell in the Cell was made for using everything that was in there to beat the holy hell out of what was going down. At one point in the match, Ricardo Rodriguez jumps to referee and gets the key that locks the Hell in the Cell door. And from there, he goes in and he throws a pipe in to the ring, which basically Alberto Del Rio uses a pipe to hit John Cena, knocks him out of the cell, and then Del Rio comes back in the cell, locks the cage door, which basically locks John Cena out of the cell, making it a one-on-one match. Del Rio versus CM Punk. If they would have done this earlier in the match, it would have been awesome. Del Rio has the key on the inside, so he throws it underneath the ring where nobody can get to it. And then it just comes down to Del Rio beating CM Punk. He becomes the new champion. And from there, the cage starts to rise as John Cena slides underneath, because he's about to whoop up on Del Rio for stealing his championship. And for some reason, once The Miz and R-Truth jump over the rails and they get into the ring, they start beating up on everybody. From Cena, they beat up Del Rio, they beat up Punk, they beat up the referees, they beat up the cameraman. If only this match was shorter, I would have been more into this. It was a very cool sight to see, even if it is R-Truth and CM Punk. Basically, they had been fired from the WWE, and they were trying to really, set their authority. And I don't know if it really goes into, basically that they were, sort of sent there by John Laurinaitis. I can't really remember how this, really goes down. I don't remember how they even get their jobs back. But basically, once they get into the ring, they start beating everybody. Somebody puts the cell back down. So now they have their own fortress where they're beating the holy hell out of everybody. The whole roster comes down. Everybody from the people that were fighting on the match, they're all working together. From Swagger, Ziggler, Air Boom, Cody Rhodes, and John Morrison are standing side by side. I don't remember seeing Randy Orton or Mark Henry out there since they were in the championship match. But, every jobber that was in the place, everybody's trying to tear the Hell in the Cell down themselves. Triple H is coming down there. He's going bananas. Somebody finally comes down with some bolt cutters and cuts the bolts open. The New Orleans Police Department is able to go in. Once they go in, they submit, where basically the police department arrests them and hauls them out. And as they're getting hauled out, Triple H loses his composure, starts beating up on both of them, jumps over the police before finally the WWE security has to try and subdue them. And as they're pulling everybody to the back, this goes dark. Of course, everybody knows from there that this goes to one of the second worst Monday Night Raw segments of all time. Of course, the first one is when Triple H relieved Vince McMahon of his duties and Vince started crying inside of the ring and they were hugging, and that was just bad. And of course, that was the night after Money in the Bank when they could have made CM Punk one of the biggest stars in the place, and instead they put all of the spotlight on handing the company over to Triple H. From here, Vince McMahon comes down and he says the board is relieving Triple H of his duties, that he's not able to do this. All of the wrestlers walk out on the WWE, and basically once they they give the GM-ship to John Laurinaitis, they all come back into the arena. If you can remember, once they all start coming back, immediately John Morrison, who had walked out on Triple H, comes up to John Morrison comes up to John Laurinaitis and immediately starts running his mouth about not being unhappy. If he was unhappy with Triple H, how was he going to be happy with the heel John Laurinaitis? It made no sense. Basically all the babyfaces should have been inside. Why the babyfaces were with the heels on the outside, thinking that basically they weren't going to be able to do it. If you remember, it was just that Monday Night Raw that just started out with Cena, Sheamus, CM Punk. I think the Big Show was there, and Triple H. It was five wrestlers inside of the arena, everybody else on the outside, and they were trying to do the Occupy Wall Street movement. I don't know. I don't know when I have to watch a 2011. I sort of go pay-per-view to pay-per-view. There's not a Vengeance anymore, so I won't be watching Vengeance. Hopefully I have a Survivor Series 2011 review, because that's the show where the Miz and R-Truth are so big that they have to bring together CM Punk. They have to bring together The Rock and John Cena to team together, even though they hate each other and they already have a match on the books for WrestleMania. I hope I don't have to rewatch that show, but we'll see from there. Thank you, everybody. WWE Network rocks. $9.99 a month gets you all of this. Peace out.